for. Probably won't happen. Here's what I'm looking forward to, though. Glenn Gronkowski playing this week with Rob Gronkowski. I just want to see two Gronkowskis on the field playing for the same team. Joining us for the first time on the pod today, we are talking soccer. Nick Clay, our resident Manchester United fan, and Brandon Chashelski, our resident Arsenal fan. Boys, how are we doing today?
Doing good, Gabe.
Doing fantastic.
There were big matches over the weekend. BC, as a perennial disappointed Arsenal fan, what do you think of your team's performances so far this year?
Team's been pretty good so far this year, winning against big clubs, competing in Champions League. I see that Wenger's actually stepping in, playing the right squad. Gooners fans, we're not getting really too tested with our patience in regards to the squad that he's releasing on game day. And what we're actually doing is we're allowing our other players, instead of just Sanchez, Ozil, to run the whole team. We have players like Theo, Ox. They're able to kind of take the stress off of Sanchez and Ozil and let them play to their
You have a
level.
more complete team this year.
Absolutely. Bringing in Lucas Perez and Mustafi is definitely taking the defensive role off of Koscielny with Mertesacker being out. Actually, I see a lot of team unity when it comes to game day.
Does it frustrate you that year after year Arsene Wenger refuses to spend heavy in the transfer market?
At the time, no, because we're actually keeping players and we're building them each year. If we were to spend money, we'd kind of end up like United, where we spend $100 million on Pogba when he's gotten 4 haircuts and a couple assists and maybe a goal.
Clay, rebuttal.
I feel if you were watching the games, it's an entirely different story. His stats compared to his actual gameplay and his performance in the games is night and day. He's showing up and he's making a lot of major key plays that don't show up on the stats. He's been really holding down the midfield. He's been stepping up in the CDM spot. He's been showing up where I know Jose doesn't like Schweinsteiger. Don't know why.
He's been very clear about that. From
Yes,
the
he's
get-go.
been very clear, but he's been picking up right where Schweinsteiger left off last year, a solid rock in the center mid spot, and he likes to play the balls out.
So at the beginning of the season, Mourinho had a good start. Everyone was really excited. But since the first couple matches, it's been a little disappointing for Manchester. What are your thoughts?
I feel they got off with a lot of energy, and now they had to figure it out. They're settling in now. They're getting used to the new players. Eribali, obviously Pogba, and then Ibra, who's continuing his fantastic form. They're really just getting settled in the EPL. It's an entirely different league than anything. It's a beast. So I feel like they came out with a lot of energy, and now they're realizing what it is, and now it's time to hunker down and really pull out some points from these next couple games.
BC, Arsenal, in contrast, they've been impressive lately. Do you think this is the year to win the title?
Take it with a grain of salt, Gabe. We take each game as it's the last game that we play, only because we reached second place last year around Christmas time. I think it's time that the club finally reaches their peak performance. It's been a while since we won the league, especially with Champions League as well. We're always out in the round of 32. Hopefully we can reach the quarterfinals this year. We'll see. Hopefully all the players today stay healthy. Obviously we brought in Lucas Perez, very prolific striker. Just hasn't been able to find his form, has been injured. Giroud's not in the team fixture right now. And players that are stepping up, Theo, Ox, Ozil, Sanchez, they're all stepping in those big player roles to score the goals.
Will an FA Cup do it again for you this year?
No, I've seen too many FA Cups. It's this time that we need to absolutely shine and hold something that means something more than just a little cup and a little shield.
You've heard it. Arsenal fans are beyond winning the FA Cup now. Clay, it's been a while. We're not even playing Champions League for Manchester right now. What's the goal for this season?
I feel the goal is to get into that final in the Europa League. Win or lose, it's a very competitive league with all the teams in it. I would like to see them obviously qualify for a Champions League spot for next year. Hopefully, I would like to see top 3. I know 4 and 5 gets you in, but definitely top 3 with the talent they've brought in. Obviously every team in the EPL is really stacked up. Crystal Palace, they brought in some solid players, and even like some of the smaller sides. But I feel they can really get a lot of points out of like the simple teams that they should be beating once they get into the full season form, and will end up showing what they're worth.
Are we just hoping, as Manchester fans, are we hoping just to contend for a title this year?
I feel fans need to be realistic. It is Jose's first season. We're coming off a bad stretch with Louis and David
And
Moyes.
yes.
Horrible stretch with Moyes. But I feel we need to be realistic and be contenders for it. But if we don't win, you can't be upset with them.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to the Bayer Leverkusen versus Dortmund game. Dortmund has been in good form in recent weeks. However, Bayer Leverkusen scratches out a win. Chicharito coming up big. That was a sell, huh, for Manchester United?
Yep. It's sad to see the little P go.
We could be using that right now. BC, what are your thoughts on the game?
I thought it was actually a pretty decent game. Dortmund's in unreal form this season.
Rejuvenated.
Exactly.
It's a squad that we've never seen. Everybody complains about Dortmund selling off their players to Bayern, getting rid of all like their star players, but now they got rid of useless players that didn't really seem to fit in the squad at all. I mean, they're coming off of 5 straight wins and just drew with Real Madrid, who's considered like best club in the world. So I don't understand how anybody can say that Dortmund is no longer in a
Even after getting
contender.
rid of Hummels.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, it's amazing. Every year they get rid of their best players to Bayern because Bayern buys all the best players in Germany. And Bayern is always first. That's a given. And Dortmund always comes in second. And they compete in the international tournaments too.
Absolutely. Like I said, 2-2 draw with Real Madrid. It's not something that happens all the
That's
time.
impressive.
Solid performance, obviously.
Absolutely.
Is Bayer Leverkusen the 3 team in Germany right now?
I would have to say near the end of the season and their performance at the end of the season last year, I really could see them being a number 3 again. And even if they pull out more performances like this against Dortmund, I could see them trying to push for that 2 spot.
So, like with Arsenal, like with Manchester, you want good domestic league play. But for the next step, Bayer Leverkusen and Dortmund, are we going to see a run in international play too?
Yeah, definitely. They have the experienced players, Mehmeti, Cheech on Bayer, obviously Royce and Kagawa and Goethe on Dortmund. They're solid players that have been around and they know what it takes to get it done internationally.
BC, what are your thoughts on Christian Pulisic, the American? What does that mean for soccer?
I want to take it slow on how we look at it. I understand he's a young age, but we can also look at a player like Fabian Johnson, who's a U.S. player playing in Germany in the same league, but he doesn't get the stardom as Pulisic does, only because I think it's allowing U.S. soccer and the country itself to grow as a whole. And now we're actually seeing like players that are actually wanting to come to, let's say, the MLS, and U.S. soccer as a whole is just growing at an exponential rate, and I actually really enjoy it.
We come back to the debate. Is it better for our best players to play over in Europe or in the MLS?
Right now, I definitely 100% think it's over in Europe. The MLS is not where it needs to be yet. It's obviously growing. It's one of the fastest growing markets in the U.S. The soccer's 100% better than when I was even 10 years ago, but it's still not to the level of European soccer.
Right. To get the best soccer, to become the best player that you can be, you have to be playing with the best and have training under the best, and that's in Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of progress on the American side, Coach Bob Bradley becomes the first American head coach of a British team, Swansea. BC, what does this mean for American soccer?
I think it's the same thing as what we just spoke of with the players. It's allowing us to grow as a country who is basically looked at for only playing 2 main sports, and that's going to be football and baseball. I mean, you can kind of toss basketball in there if you want to, but that's on the international scale as well. Bob Bradley was actually considered for the England manager position,
Yes.
but we weren't sure as a soccer community if he was going to be even able to understand the level of talent that's on that side. I kind of look at it as will he be able to be the first manager in several amount of years to actually play a dual role as a club manager and a national team manager? I think that's something maybe we'll see in the future, but I don't expect too much from it.
If he fails in Swansea, is this a major setback for American soccer?
No, because we've seen him fail in other places, but this is just a bigger, more spotlight role that he's taken on, other than obviously the U.S. head manager spot, and it's a dog-eat-dog world in the EPL, and you can't take anything with a grain of salt for sometimes. But with other managers, they've had a long standing of doing well. And I mean, obviously Jose is on United now, but like when he went back to Chelsea, he couldn't continue his form, and that's obviously why they got rid of him. And you just got to realize what type of team he's managing. It's not a Liverpool, it's not a United, it's not a City. It's Swansea. It's somebody who's always competing in that middle spot and hoping their goal is not get relegated.
Right, they're a mid-table team year after year. For me, it's more impressive when a coach is able to do well with a club side rather than a national team side. The national team side, you get 2 weeks of training camp. With the club side, you're not seeing your players for maybe a month out of the year. You can tell a lot more about a coach from the club side. I really hope he does well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully. It'd be a big step for U.S. soccer also.
Moving on, let's talk Champions League. Dortmund tied Madrid, like we mentioned earlier. Who do you think has the best shot at winning the Champions League?
Since 2013, it's been all Spanish teams. They've dominated. It's unreal.
Will that streak be broken this year?
On my end, I don't think so. I think Real Madrid has another big chance of winning another Champions League title, in my mind.
The same, like, not Real, but Atletico. I definitely see Griezmann coming off of his fantastic form in the Euros, and he's been helping his team and leading them to victories, and that's why they're sitting first in La Liga. I could see them winning. Or outside of that realm, Juve. They've brought in a lot of good talent. Dani Alves, Higuain, fantastic striker, fantastic backs. They've got pretty much 2 full teams that are better than most teams, and I could really see them, getting some payback for what happened a couple of years ago.
One thing I'd like for us to touch on is how poorly English teams have done in these international competitions. Leicester City, first time they're playing Champions League. Do you think they might be able to break the British streak?
I mean, they have 2 wins off the bat already, which is unheard of from English teams.
That's crazy.
Once they get into playing against real teams and get out of the group stage, I don't see them going very far. I see the Pep Guardiola City, who's playing Bayern, or was playing like Barcelona when he was there. They look fantastic. I could see them taking it very far and competing for that title.
They tied Celtic 3-3 though.
It's a Scottish side, top country in the world.
As we look at that, Barcelona destroyed them 7-0.
See, I don't know what it is that no one really argues that the English Premier League is the best league in the world, but they're not showing it in international competitions. Why is that?
I think it's on 2 different scales.
I feel like they're so prepared for English teams and the hard nature of the play that once they get into more skilled teams, like obviously the Spanish and German teams, they are really hard hitting, but they also do bring in the skill, and I feel like they can't really stand up to it as much.
So you think the focus for British teams is the domestic side?
Yes.
I agree too. I mean, everybody says that the EPL is the hardest, league out there, and you compete for a title. Then sometimes you kind of just skip over Champions League, like it's nothing.
By default, you have no choice.
Absolutely.
All right, fair enough. BC, who wins the EPL this year?
I don't know why you would stick me in such a position like that. In my mind, if City continues their dominance in the EPL, they have a potential shot of winning. But in my mind, I think it's going to be a club that's outside of what is considered the top 4 of clubs.
Which is Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man U.
Yes, absolutely. But to be honest with you, I like seeing competition, so I don't know how I want to answer this, but I really hope, obviously being an Arsenal fan, that it's Arsenal, but being realistic.
You're hoping for a tight horse race.
Absolutely. It's always fun, especially when you get into Christmas break. That's when you see some teams drop off, some teams, pick up their pace. This is so hard to say it, but I honestly I think Man U is a big contender for the league.
Wow. Clay?
I can't argue with it. No, but on a serious note, if City does continue their form, I really see them winning. Another team that's really been stepping up this year with the help of Harry Kane, Tottenham. I see them being a serious contender this year. They've always been up there, obviously not winning and can't get past Arsenal, but this year it's a new Tottenham. They seem focused, but again, if United continues like their current run of form, I don't see them winning. But if they, like I said, if they can pick up those big victories in November, I think they'll win it.
To me, it's all about Man City. I'm not betting against Pep Guardiola. I can't, and that team is way too deep to not win this. Coming in second or third, Manchester United or Arsenal, and fourth, I'm going to sneak in Tottenham.
I'd like to agree with that.
Fair enough.
All right, this has been the soccer segment of our podcast Running Wild. I've been joined today by Nick Clay and Brandon Shashelski. Boys, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And our last guest today, back-to-back AMCC Defensive Player of the Week. She's a standout goalie for Hilbert College Hawks. Joining us is Jenna Castricone. Jenna, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
So, Jenna, coming into the preseason, how was the preseason poll? How did that serve as motivation for your team?
Our team really didn't like how the conference and the other coaches set us at such a low standard this year. We're looking to prove a point this year.
In the preseason, weren't you voted to come in last this year?
Yeah, we were. And
You guys took that personally, huh?
yeah, we did.
Coach Kelly remind you of that every day?
Our team didn't really like being set at such a low standard, so we had a lot of the freshmen really step up in the preseason, and we worked hard, a lot harder than what we're used to, and it's clearly paying off.
I think this year's freshman class for you guys, too. This is the best freshman class I've seen be able to come in and have an immediate impact on the field.
Yeah, definitely. We're playing well together. Everyone is using each other on the field well. We're really just connecting well as a team.
How about the addition of Coach Rick? What has that meant for the team?
He's also definitely pushing us all to work a lot harder in practices. Definitely the physical part and the fitness part, it's definitely helped our momentum keep going in games and practices to keep us pushing whether it be the last 10 minutes in a game or even the last 5 minutes in the first half. We've been having a solid defense, which has majorly impacted our team this year, and we just have been keeping up with the good work.
I'm going to be straightforward right now. Why on earth are you a goalie? It's the scariest position in sports. Everyone thinks they can be a goalie until they take that first rocket from 6 yards out. What motivates you to stay in the net?
Honestly, I wasn't a goalie. I played outside
Really?
mid. Yeah.
Did you transition to goalie in college?
Well, in high school, my senior year,
Uh-huh.
the goalie got injured and no one else would step up to play goal. So I just did it. And coming into college, I wasn't supposed to be in net.
You started out
in
in midfield, right?
Right, outside mid. And then there was an injury here, and then I played in net for a game over summer, and then everyone was like, "Oh, you need to play in goal." It's exciting, and
Does the challenge
all the-
excites you?
yeah, and the action, you're involved in a lot of the play in the game. I mean, some games if the ball's in the other end.
Would you rather have a game where you're making a lot of saves, where you're reading the game well, or would you rather have a game where you don't even see the ball?
I like when the ball is in the other end. I like when we're doing well offensively, and I like when we're making saves, but we have such a strong defense that I trust my defense. I know that they're going to get the ball out if I have to make a save, so I know that there's nothing's going to happen if we're in trouble.
Moving on, how did you originally come to Hilbert? Because you weren't originally recruited for soccer.
Right. So originally I was recruited by Coach Hall for softball, and he was the assistant at the time. And then before, halfway through the year, Coach Kelly saw that I played soccer. So she talked to Coach Hall and she started to reach out to me.
Do you like being a dual sport athlete in college?
Yes, it definitely helps me manage my time better. I know I need to get stuff done.
What other interests outside of soccer do you have, Jenna?
I mainly just like hanging out with my friends, having a good time, but I'm usually pretty busy.
This has been Jenna Castricone. Come watch her and the women's soccer team play La Roche College October 8th at Hawk Field. Shout out to the Corner Creatures. I'm sure they'll be in attendance too. This has been Jenna Castricone. Thank you for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
What a great show this week. Guys, thanks for filling in for Spencer this week.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
This has been the podcast Running Wild. Please tune in next Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have video up by then. As always, this is the podcast Running Wild.
Running wild.